Now we get to talk about the permission sets that come with Data Cloud and what they allow the users to do. We'll also include data spaces in this video. So, what is a permission? It's a setting that grants a user access to a specific tool, function, or area in Salesforce. What is a permission set? This is a collection of permissions and settings that gives users access to specific tools and functions. So you need to be the Salesforce system administrator in order to assign these permission sets to users, which then give the users those permissions that are allowed in the permission sets. There is a permission set called Data Cloud Admin, and this is a standard Data Cloud permission set that includes permissions to the Data Cloud setup page where administrators configure data sources and create data kits. Now, that is a very limited definition, as we can see on this graphic. If this graphic is correct, it shows us which permission sets of these four have full access, view only, or no access to all of these things. So the Data Cloud Admin, that definition said, allows them to do Data Cloud setup, which is true. And what was the other thing it said? And create data kits, okay? Create data kits, is that even listed here? It's not even listed here. But as we can see, the Data Cloud Admin has full access to all of these things. And this is another good overview of what Data Cloud is all about. So in setup, we could create connections to data sources, data spaces, we'll talk about in a minute, but it allows you to create partitions within Data Cloud so that you can restrict who can see what in Data Cloud. Data streams is the data that's coming in from the various sources. Data shares is where you're sharing information from an existing data lake and not ingesting it into the Data Cloud data lake. Data lake objects are special kind of objects. They're not S objects. They're not Salesforce objects. They have an underscore DLM. These objects that are special kind of Data Cloud objects that you can access inside Salesforce represent the data that is living in the data lake, which is not in Salesforce. Data transforms let you do some changing of the data on its way in. The data model is where we map the data, harmonize the data. Data graphs, identity resolution, where we unify the data. Data explorer, we can examine the data. Profile explorer, we can examine the profiles that have been created in the unification process. Calculated insights, Einstein Studio AI models, data actions and data action targets, segmenting, activating, and activation targets. As you would expect, the Data Cloud Admin can do everything Data Cloud, according to this chart. Data Aware Specialist. Data Cloud Data Aware Specialist. So this one is very interesting. I wish this word data aware was called data focused specialist, because they don't do setup, they can't do data space management, although they can do this data space data addition. And then they can do all of these things until it gets to these Einstein Studio AI models, which is view only, and segmenting and activating the segments. This Data Cloud Data Aware Specialist can only view but not create segments and activation targets. So it's very interesting. Let's see what the formal definition says. A standard Data Cloud permission set that includes permissions to ingest data, manage the data model, and create identity resolution rule sets for unified profiles. Okay, so that is basically saying you can set up a data stream You can model, I think it said. You can do identity resolution. And that's, I think, the formal definition, the identity rule sets. Yeah, right here. So it's only mentioning a few of these items that this person can do, but clearly they can do everything in here plus data action and data targets, and they can view these guys. Next, we go on to the Data Cloud Marketing Manager. Got a lot of things it can view, but the only two things it can actually do is the Einstein Studio AI models, three things, segmenting and activation targets, 1, 2, 3. And then last, we have the Data Cloud Marketing Specialist who does only one thing, and that is create segments. And these two do not have access to the Data Explorer or Profile Explorer, nor can they do these three things. So let's see what the formal definition of Marketing Manager permission set says. A standard Data Cloud permission set that includes permissions to most features except for Data Cloud Setup. These definitions don't match that chart too well. And the Marketing Specialist, this is accurate. It's basically only allowed to do segmentation, although it does have the ability to view other things. So this is the chart that we just went over, but I have discovered this other chart that has the 6 permission sets instead of 4, and some things changed. So we have the Data Cloud Marketing Admin, who is the more all-powerful in Data Cloud, however, only has view permissions to data shares. And it looks like the Data Cloud Admin no longer has the ability to even view segments or activations and activation targets. Now, of course, a person can be given more than one permission set, or additional permission sets could be created to give specific permissions, but these are the standard out-of-the-box permission sets. And then we have the Data Cloud user permission, who cannot actually do anything, but can view some things. Now, one more thing, the data space, let's talk about that definition. A data space is a logical partition to organize your data for profile unification, insights, and marketing in Data Cloud. A bit of a limited definition. Here's what Google AI gave me. Data spaces allow users to segregate data processes and metadata across regions, departments, or brands for a single Data Cloud instance. This segregation allows users to run processes based on their business needs and for a personalized experience. Okay, you can read the rest of that definition, but I did want to show you that, for example, and this is in the trial org that has somewhat limited functionality, doesn't have the Data Cloud admin permissions, but I can create a new data stream, and in the process of creating a new data stream, it asks me which data space should this data stream belong to. It comes with a default data space, which cannot be deleted. And if this was an org where I had the Data Cloud admin permission, I would be able to create additional data spaces, and then I could choose which data space this data stream should belong to. So that's the idea of data spaces that allow you to partition your data cloud based on things like what region, what department, or what brand, so that the right people are seeing the right streams and the right data. One quiz question that we saw said something like, does data spaces let you control where the data resides for privacy purposes? In other words, one data space could be in Europe and another data space could be somewhere else. And that is not correct. The data space does not control where the data resides. It only controls who can see what in Data Cloud. If you do have multiple data spaces, the way that you give access to those data spaces is by assigning the permission set for the data space to the people who should be able to access that data space.